Hey everybody, JJ here. Back for another Wednesday of Zoom networking, and boy, oh boy, am I excited. We got a rock star of rock stars for you. The young lady we have speaking today is out of Pace Morby Sub 2 community. And if you've been on these calls before, you've heard me talk about Pace Morby, and you've heard about me talk about Sub 2. It is the premier real estate education group in the country, bar none. And again, we're not talking about Pace today. Pace isn't here, but we are talking about one of his rock stars. The young lady with us is amazing. She is a legend within Sub 2, highly respected, and is someone that I'm just honored to have introduced to you guys today. My good friend, Miss Tanishia Epps. How are you, my dear?
I'm great. How you doing, everybody?
Hey, it's so good to have you here. Let's kind of get right to a couple things. For those that don't know you, what part of the country are you from?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Must be beautiful there now, huh?
At the moment, it's raining, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. We don't have a lot of trees and grass and rolling hills. We have some stuff, but I think you guys in your part of the country just have a much more beautiful area.
At least we get the seasons on a regular basis, so it's nice.
There you go. So, have you always lived in Virginia? Are you from there originally?
I'm from Virginia originally. I lived here all the way through college. Right after I graduated college, I got bored here and decided I was going to move to Florida. So I moved to Florida for 2.5 years on a relocation with my job. Stayed there for about 2.5 years. Took another relocation to come back to Virginia. And then because I didn't have any, I just got here, no inventory, no work to do. They said, hey, do you want to go join our catastrophe team? I work for an insurance company, by the way. So do you want to go out and join our catastrophe team for a couple of weeks? And I said, sure, why not? And then I just stayed there for 15 years. So, yeah, so I stayed on that team for a very long time. And so I got to travel the country on someone else's dime, which is super awesome.
Great. And so was that the insurance and the catastrophe, I guess, homes that have been experienced some amount of distress? Was this part of your introduction into real estate?
I would say it helped me determine what I wanted to focus on in real estate, which I didn't know at the time when I got into real estate. But the big thing I liked the most about the job that I had was being of service to people who were at their worst situations. I mean, I saw people who lost their homes, lost their cars, lost family members during some of the worst disasters that hit the country. So that was something that really resonated with me, the service piece, and just helping people in kind of bad situations. And that's kind of what led me into the midterm rental realm, but not necessarily to real estate.
Great. So it's interesting that you've got that, to me, something a little bit more technical experience background that a lot of us don't really have. Some people are just getting into real estate from different fields. Let's talk about Sub 2. How did you find out about Sub? Everybody comes in from a different way, or maybe not everybody. Some of us have the same path, but how did you come to hear about PACE? How did you come to find out about Sub 2?
So I love to tell Pace that I joined Sub 2 on accident, because I did. So I got into real estate investing. Really, it started probably 10 years ago because my fiance gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I didn't read it. I read like the first 2 or 3 pages and then I put it down. Then I said, oh, I'm going to go be a realtor because that sounds like a good way to get into real estate. But I realized that I had been working basically out of state for, the better part of 15 years. So I didn't actually know anybody here, and I'm an introvert as well. So being a realtor probably was not necessarily the best idea. And the minute that I had people calling me, talking about, can you drive me around to go look at houses, I was out. So that didn't last very long either. But I still had this pull to real estate. So once, right before COVID, I started going to meetups and different things like that. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can get back into it. I picked the book back up, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which actually I mostly finished reading, not the whole thing, but mostly. But it resonated differently with me this time because my mind was in a different place. So I could really receive the book where I couldn't necessarily before. So I hooked up with a lender and got a line of credit. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to go buy all these houses and do fix and flips, which I knew nothing about either, but that's okay. So problem is this little thing called COVID hit and everybody stopped lending. So my whole line of credit that I started with, I couldn't use because I couldn't get lending. I couldn't get funding because they shut down their lending. I didn't want to stop though. So I picked up this book from Bigger Pockets. It was called Long Distance Real Estate Investing because I realized, man, if I can't use my line of credit, the houses where I live are a little expensive. So I read this book, followed the instructions in the book, connected with a property manager and a realtor who happened to be both. And I bought 4 houses in 7 months in a state that I've still never been to, which was super cool and scary at the same time. So the way I bought those houses, though, is I used my home equity line of credit for down payments and I went to get loans because, that's what you do. You go buy houses with, loans and credit, right? That's what most people think when they get started. My problem was your home equity line of credit is only good for a certain amount of money. So at some point I was going to run out of money. So I Googled how to buy real estate without having money or without your own money. And this guy kept popping up on my Facebook feed and he kept popping up on my Instagram feed. And this Pace Morby guy, so he was doing a 16-hour live, I think is the one that he did there. I started watching it and I'm like, man, this guy's super cool. Then I hear them talk about this group called Sub 2. So I go to Facebook and I try to join this group. I didn't realize that the group was private. So I'm trying to join this private Facebook group and one of the reps messaged me and said, hey, just so you know, this group is private. Did you know that? And I said, no. She said, okay, great. Well, do you want to hear more about our mentorship? And I said, oh, no, thank you, because I never intended to pay to learn anything, right? I can learn everything I need to know on YouTube, or so I thought. And YouTube is a wonderful place. I mean, I've fixed a whole lot of stuff in my house based off of YouTube, but I definitely could not learn real estate on YouTube, but I didn't know that at the time. Well, because they have such a wonderful sales team, I like to say I got hustled, but it wasn't really. But I was created this massive fear of missing out that was very valid. So my intake rep got me to sign up basically the same day. So that's how I joined Sub 2 on accident, because I never intended to join a mentorship at all.
So I've been in Sub 2 not quite a year and a half. And your name is one of the names I heard right from the freaking get-go. And for those that don't know you, what is your specialty in Sub 2? What is the reason why for those that don't know you, and those that maybe don't know Sub 2, but they're watching on YouTube right now, what is the thing that kind of elevated you or got you to the point where you're one of the key people within the group, because you are one of the key people within the group?
It really had nothing to do with real estate, like at all. So as I said, I need to stop saying I'm an introvert, but I still have my tendencies. So, it kind of is what it is. But the big thing that got me attention was I would be in Zooms with Pace and he would bring up a topic. And because I had been studying so much in the vault, I knew where a lot of things were. So I just kept hearing him say the same things over and over and over. And he's happy to repeat it. But in my mind, I'm like, why can I not just share this information so people can go watch it later? He's going to talk about it now, but just so they have reference. So I would drop links in the chat. So Pace started noticing that. Again, I'm not doing it for attention. I'm just doing it to be helpful because that's just what I do. And I remember this one Zoom in particular, we were talking about wraps. And somebody asked a question about, hey, do you have to repair, do you have to repair a house to sell it on a wrap? The minute they asked the question, I already knew the answer. And I knew what Zoom we needed to reference. And I knew what Pace was going to say because I've heard it, I've heard it enough. I pay attention. So he goes to say, hey, Tanishia, this might be a stretch, but can you find? And the minute he said, can you find? I dropped the link in the chat. And he's like, oh my gosh, it's just funny. And then he tried to hire me and, all this kind of stuff. So I love Pace. He's my brother. So that's the thing that got me attention in Sub 2. It wasn't about real estate. It wasn't looking for attention. It was literally just being a helper, helping people. And this is before the avatars were really defined. I was just trying to help people because I had the information and I knew somebody needed it. So I just wanted to be helpful.
That sounds great. I know I myself have had little issues with the vault. Maybe another time I'll get with you and you can help me resolve that. But I know a lot of times when students are new, for whatever program, Brent Daniels, Astro Flipping, my first program, which goes unmentioned. Sometimes the education curriculum can be like a fire hose. We're learning by fire hose, and there's just so much there. I know there's within Sub 2, there's the Discord platform, there's the vault, and I think Pace has a couple of YouTube videos and Zoom calls out there. We have the wonderful Caroline Kane that has the daily dial in the mornings, and of course Janet Kahano has the nighttime dials in the evenings. So there's just so much value. What do you think is the best way for the newer investors to handle this flow of information? Is there anything to make, maybe from your standpoint, a little easier for them to acclimate into the lay of the land in front of them? We've got several new people on the call today.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that people don't take the opportunity to do is to be new and to be a student. Because we come in and we have so much information and you see what looks like people doing so many deals and they're doing so well. And you immediately have this thing about, I'm not doing enough, or I should join this mentorship and I should get a deal in a week. And what they do is they skip through the base information, especially people who are new to real estate, because we've got, people that have experience and we have people that have no experience and the whole gambit, in between. And I think that if you don't allow yourself to be new and to be a student, you're doing yourself a disservice, because there's a lot of information that you may miss and a lot of things that you'll have to go back to. Now, it's great to jump in and take action. But my personal opinion is if you build the foundation and make it strong, then you have a lot more to build upon. So I would encourage anybody to take the time to be new and be okay with it.
Great. Is there anything that you particularly, I guess you like the vault in particular, right? Is that something you're really familiar with, or?
I love the vault because I manage the vault for the most part. So yes, I do love it. And the thing is, with me knowing where all the information was, Pace asked me, would you be okay helping to kind of organize the information? Because there's a lot. And the way that my mind thinks is, how do people take in information? How do they find what they're looking for? And what are key phrases or searches that they need to know? So I actually study the group. So I study the Facebook group. I study people's posts. Whenever people make comments on videos, all of those things come to my email. I see all of them. So I literally study and pay attention to the comments that people make, the questions that people make, because I take it very personally, the community in Sub 2. And I just want to see how I can make it better. So I literally study the group and the people and the information and the resources, et cetera, so I can do my part to make it better for everybody else.
That's awesome. No, you're amazing. We talked a little bit the other day, getting to know one another a bit, and to hear you go into depth a little bit more about some things is fantastic. Which one of the most enjoyable parts about what I do, as far as being a host and getting to know folks. As I said, when I started, there were less than 1,200 people almost a year and a half ago. What are some of the changes that you've seen in Sub 2, maybe due to the growth that you've noticed in particular, that maybe make things a little easier, a little bit more, maybe a little bit more challenging with more people to maneuver with?
Yeah, when I joined, there were 1,600 people. So, and I thought that was a lot. And I think we're on the verge of almost 8,000 now.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about Sub 2 is the community of people that we have. The best part, I think, is that we don't end it, right? So a lot of people join different mentorships and they have 6 months in or 3 months or whatever the case may be. The beauty of Sub 2, and this is something that Pace says all the time, if it was a 6-month mentorship, how many of us would not be there anymore? And what value would the community be missing because we're not there? And to me, that piece really resonated when Pace talked about it, because you can't build community and then kick people out of it. It's like having your family and then you kick your kids out like, oh, wait, I had my kid last week, go figure out life in 5, 6 years. Like you can't do that. You can't build a community, can't build a relationship like that. And we have so many high level people that come in. We have people with so much experience from different backgrounds, different avenues. And if we didn't have this lifelong mentorship, we can't build these lifelong relationships. Like I see plenty of people, on the call with us today. And I have their numbers in my phone and I actually talk to them. I've built community. I don't have to see all these people in person. It's a relationship that you build in a community. So I think that's the biggest part of Sub 2 that I think is the highest value.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about Sub 2. And I talk about it in my group all the time. I mean, it's very common. Real estate's about relationships, and so many people have to chase the deal. And one of the things I say all the time is chase the relationship, don't chase the deal. Mm-hmm. Deals come and go, whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. Good deal closes, bad deal goes away, but relationships last forever. And that's the premise of that. So for your business now, you're doing the short-term rental. Tell us about that. How did you get into that? And let's roll with that.
Yeah, so I don't do short-term rentals for the most part. Maybe like every now and then. My focus is midterm rentals. And the reason I personally chose not to do midterm rentals is because I defined my niche based off of what I wanted my personal life to look like. I'm a huge Disney fan. And I can't go to Disney if I have to manage these people coming in and out of, places all the time. Like, I love that Sam, they're so good at what they do. Sam and Vin, they're so good at what they do. I just know for me, I didn't want to deal with the turnover. And again, I have a background in dealing with people in travel situations because I was a corporate traveler. So that was really the thing that kind of pushed me on this edge. I work in the insurance industry. I have family and friends who are in the medical industry. I've done corporate relocations. I've been that person relocating. So when I chose this niche and I started defining the avatar of my clients, it just fit because half of those people were me, or I've worked with those people before. So it's an opportunity for me to provide service back to something I already know. And again, my clients don't really call me. They don't. Like, I check in with them every now and then, but they don't call me. It's easy. I can go to Disney, which I'm going to do in March. As a matter of fact. So I can go, I can spend time with my family, and I still have a W-2 right now, but, at some point I'll probably be letting that go and just focusing on this full time, because the hospitality piece is the part that's the most important to me. I also have a degree in hospitality management. I went to culinary school, a few years ago. I had a home bakery. So that was fun for a while, but I let that go to focus on real estate. So for me, trying to figure out what my kind of niche and my passion was, I did like a lot of people did, which was, oh, I can do this. I can fix and flip. I can wholesale. I can do regular buy and hold. I can do short-term rentals. Whatever was around other than, nope, I wanted to do new builds too. So it was some of everything. And a lot of it was just because there's too much information. There's too many ways to be successful in real estate. That's the problem. It's a good thing and a bad thing when you can't get focused. So for me, I spent the better part of a year getting focused on what I wanted to do and why. And I took a real step back from buying properties. I wasn't doing a whole lot of anything other than research into what am I doing and why am I doing it? And then once I defined my why, then I had to figure out the who I was going to help with the business that I wanted to get into.
I think it's great that you mentioned it that way, and, about taking time to decide what you wanted to do. I got into Sub 2 really because I followed people from my group to Sub 2. All the successful people in my group are going to Sub 2 Pace Morby. I was like, what's Sub 2 Pace Morby? I thought it was one thing like Lamborghini. What's Sub 2 Pace Morby? And when I went in, all I knew was that I could see the value it had in the people that were in there. And I knew that without even knowing really the nuts and the bolts, I knew I wanted in. And I knew I wanted in before the price went up. Because something like that is good. And it has since I've gotten in. But in the time that I've been in, dealing with other personal things. My mom passed away and a whole bunch of personal stuff. So I've not been able to jump into the real estate vein like I would like. And some of the new people on the group are like trying to find their spot. Where do I go? And like you said, you took your time to evaluate the lay of the land, which I'm doing as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did through that time was, as you said, I think building the relationships, building the network, and I hear a lot of people say all the time, I don't want to network until I got my business up and running. Well, in that case, I say you get your business up and running and you've got no one to work with.
There you go.
So you have so many people love you. I mean, you're truly a rock star. Like, Stevie Nicks, Cher, Madonna, whatever. It's like Tanishia Epps. They're all at the same level. How did you find being an introvert and now having this high level of visibility and recognition, acknowledgement, respect in the community? How did you feel the growth of your network and the relationships? And as that transpired, how did that affect your confidence as well as maybe the growth of your business?
So I said to someone that I was talking to last week, because I still classify myself as an introvert. I am not 100% comfortable being in front of rooms. I'm just not. There are some places that just will never be for me, and I'm okay with that. Pace is really he's been working on me for a while, just being more comfortable speaking in front of rooms. And that doesn't mean that I'm a confident person when I'm speaking about what I know. So that's easy. It's not hard. But when it comes to being in a room, especially with other people who have much stronger, I think, personalities, sometimes it has me retreat just a little bit. And it's not because I'm afraid. It's just because I don't care about being in the forefront. And I think that's the biggest thing. So I told someone last week, I used to be the person who would go into a room and I would find the closest corner and my face would be toward the corner and my back would be facing out. Now I'm the opposite. So now I might still be in the corner, but my back is in the corner and I'm facing out because I'm studying people, I'm watching people, and I'm very observant. And I'm just looking to see who I can connect with so that I can go and introduce myself. And the easy thing about Sub 2 is it feels like family all the time, all the time. So I can be on a Zoom right now with people and then go see them in person and feel like I'm with family. I don't have to feel nervous. I don't have to feel intimidated. Although sometimes when people walk up to you and they say, "Oh my gosh, it's Tanishia," that still makes me nervous. It still does. But I just embrace it because I am so grateful for the opportunity to have people know who I am so that I can go back and provide value to them. That's really all I care about. Like for me, I live by the Go-Giver principles, the 5 laws of success as far as the Go-Giver is concerned. I read those every day as my affirmations. That's all I care about. And those are things that actually help me to connect better with people, because the law number 4 is your greatest value is yourself. And if I truly believe in that, then I have to be able to give of myself so that I can give more value and receive it back in return.
You are phenomenal. When I was a kid, I was shy. I stuttered. I was teased horribly. So I was that introvert at one point in time too. And people look at me, "You an introvert?" But I think to some extent we all have to overcome that so that we could provide the value that we want to provide. We have a question, so I'm going to bring somebody on with us. Sherry Lash, you are on with Tanishia Epps. What's your question?
Hey, how's it going, Tanisha?
It's going well. How you doing?
Good, good. Let me lower my hand. So I have a question. When we hear about midterm rentals, well, in the case that I've always heard about midterm rentals, I've always heard about just traveling nurses. Can you expand a little bit on how many people we can actually target for midterm rentals? Like what types of industries?
Midterm rentals are everywhere. So the question becomes, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, why would somebody need an extended stay? So that's the first thing. What are the reasons why somebody would need to stay in a place for 30 or more days? Because that's what midterm is, 30 days plus. And most of my stays are typically starting at 90 days, but some of them are way longer than that, which actually is nice. So my favorite one is displacements because of insurance claims. So you have those. You also have people that are displaced because they are moving in and out of their house. That is a really big one that people do not pay attention to enough. So think about the fact that we're in real estate. A lot of us are connecting with realtors, with different agents, with brokers on a regular basis. What is their business? They're helping people buy and sell houses. So if anybody's an agent, which I know there's a few in here, if anybody's an agent, one of the things you often see is contingencies for people that can't move yet because they need to buy another house. But what if you need to sell your house right away? Well, having a midterm rental that you can go to for 30, 60 days, 90 days until you can find a place to go, but you can still sell your house, huge value. So not enough people actually pay attention to that one. It's huge. All you got to do is connect with brokers, realtors that are actually in the business and tell them what service you're providing. That one's an easy one. Travel medical professionals too. Most people say travel nurses, like you said, but think about the industry. Nurses are not the only people in the medical industry. So you have traveling doctors, you have traveling medical techs. I just put somebody in a place today. She's a radiology tech. She's going to stay with me for 90 days. She's not a nurse. She's a radiology tech. I have another one that I'm working on right now. It's a doctor, and he's bringing his family to the area. So not the typical just, I hear travel nurse and that's it. So really the biggest thing is think about, why would somebody need to stay somewhere for 30 days or more? And then start building out your client avatar. Like for me, I did a relocation like twice. My place wasn't ready, so I had to go stay in corporate housing. I also used to travel with the insurance company as an adjuster. And if you're in a disaster zone, sometimes hotels are not available. So staying in corporate housing, which I used to do, is way better than living in a hotel because you're not stuck in a box and you can actually cook and maybe save some of your per diem, which is what I got very good at.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good light, because when you think of doctors as being in a stable place and not, not really traveling. Like it's your doctor, you don't think about them traveling. And insurance claims, I've heard about, I forgot about that. That was in the back of my mind and you brought it to the front of my mind again. So yeah, all of that makes sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good question. Thank you.
Sherry, thank you so much, Sherry. Mr. Lance Reagan. Lance, thanks for joining us today, my friend. You're on with Tanishia Epps. What's your question?
Hey guys, sorry it's late, but I wanted to ask, so I've been having an issue finding property management company who is willing to target for midterm rentals. Is there a secret to that, a secret sauce, or I really want to do management myself. And so in this area, I've reached out to only 3 so far, but I haven't had any luck. They weren't willing to do that for me. They were just doing the long-term rentals. So do I just need to find a different property management company, or how would I go about managing those?
Yeah, the first question you should ask them is, do they know what a midterm rental is? Because most of them probably will not. So you've got, midterm rentals are called multiple things. You've got midterm, some people call them medium term. You have corporate rentals, extended stays. So there's so many names for the same industry. And the funny part is a lot of people think this is brand new, and it's not. Again, I was a corporate traveler 15 years ago, living in the same type of housing. Excuse me. So I would highly suggest, if you want to hire a property manager, that you find someone that does short-term rentals, because at least they understand the industry. Then you're going to have to figure out if they know who the clientele is that they're going to go after. And I will tell you, a lot probably do not. Again, just because nobody ever thinks of who actually needs to stay in this place. The first thing they think is it's a vacation. So I'm just going to pop it on the Airbnb platform and all these people are going to come to me. And it works like that sometimes, but not always. So I would go after a short-term rental property manager and talk to them rather than long-term, unless somebody's doing a hybrid of long and short-term, because there are some of those. I actually just talked to the property manager today that's doing that. So.
Okay, I did actually. One of them was open, said they were having conversations about it because they had several people asking them. So that might be the person I maybe give them a little education on it.
There you go. Awesome.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lance. My good friend, Judy Rainham. Judy, how are you? You're on with Tanishia Epps. What's your question?
Hi, Judy.
Hi, Tanishia. How are you?
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure. This is
This
fun.
something we are really interested in because we have a couple flips that, well, one in Phoenix that we're having a hard time selling because that market has pretty much tanked. And so we're looking into, Airbnb or corporate. And then we have one in Minneapolis also. But do you contact like insurance companies and say an airline or a college, or is there a central place that will give you this information? Or
The first thing I would see is what industries are around you.
Mhm.
That's really what you want to focus on. Number one, what industries are around you? So if you're near a college, call a college. And it's funny, I was in a group call today and someone said, hey, do you think such and such? I said, why don't you just pick up the phone and ask, right? And that's one thing that sometimes we don't do because we're like, oh, well, it's a college, so they already have housing. Well, that would be the same thing as us saying, oh, well, somebody's in foreclosure, but somebody's already helping them, right? But we don't know that somebody's helping them. Maybe they're waiting for us. So if you have a college around you, call them. If you have a hospital that's around you, call and ask to speak to the nurse housing coordinator or the nursing coordinator. They will tell you if they have demand in the area, hopefully, but you have to be nice to them. So, and I know you will, Judy. But sometimes people make these calls and they're almost like demanding information. So I have a company that I work with because I do more business to business relationships at this point, and that's what I spent a lot of my time doing last year. And the person I talked to said, I'm getting calls from people asking me what market I should invest in. I'm like, that's probably not a question that you answer because that's not your job. And she said, no, it's not. But if you are local, call, just pick up the phone. I would research what big companies you have in your area. Like if there's an Amazon in your area, just call like the local. If you can call the local Amazon, we have like 4 of them here. Call local Amazon plant. If they're building an Amazon, like if you have really large industry or they're building, think about this. So I'm a huge Lego fanatic, huge Lego fan. It's very, very sad. But anyway, they're putting a Lego factory in my city. What are the odds? Like I'm ready to quit my job right now so I can figure out how to go work at Lego. Okay. Anyway, what do I think about now when I think about Lego? They got to have construction people come to town. They need people to stay 30, 60, 90 days, or maybe a whole year because they are on a construction project. Call them up, call the city, find out what projects they have. And this nugget here is I just talked to my small business administration. Call up your small business administration. Ask them how you can get on some type of certification with them so you can potentially be put as a corporate housing vendor with your city. That's easy. That's easy money because they're just going to come to you. Sometimes some have certifications and some don't. So there's so many ways to get involved in midterm rentals. You just have to decide for you, who do you want to deal with? How long would you like to be able to deal with people? Are you willing to do a hybrid of short and midterm? Because you probably could. And figure out who it is that is going to be good for you. Now I see someone putting go to Furnish Finder in the chat. Furnish Finder is great. But you need more. That's all. That's the best I'm going to say. You need more than Furnish Finder. It's more targeted toward travel medical professionals. It's not necessarily going to bring the overall picture of industry. You need industry. You need people to come to you. And you can list on Airbnb. Use keywords. Again, think about why somebody would want to stay with you. Put extended stays welcome. There's a whole section on Airbnb for monthly rentals. Don't know if everybody knows that. You can literally do a search for Airbnb monthly rentals and see what other people are listing for. Look at the keywords that they have in their listings and use those same keywords in yours. So that way you can try to stand out.
Dante, you are on with Tanishia Epps. What's your question?
Hi, Tanisha. How are you?
Hi, Dante. How are you?
Good. Just living the dream.
All right.
I've got 2 questions. So basically, what area would you target midterm rentals in the bigger markets? Like, is there a certain area that you go into the big markets and you look at? And
Who do
then
you
my
want to serve?
second,
Ask yourself the question, who do you want to serve? Who do you want your clientele to be? Because if you like students, go find a college.
Yeah.
You know, it really depends on what industry and who you want to serve and why. And again, if you're anywhere where people buy and sell houses, go connect with realtors and brokers.
Okay. And then when you're looking at a deal, is there a certain acquisition strategy that you say, oh wow, this is a good midterm rental, like, you know, with a wrap or something along the lines of that, you know, or not a wrap, but like a sub 2 or a hybrid seller finance, something along the lines of that.
I have certain property types that I don't want because there's certain things that I just don't want to deal with. And if I look at what the average homeowner is buying in the area, because that's what I look at, what's the average home price and what's the average property type that people are living in. So I'm not going to go get a 6-bedroom house when most people are living in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I'm not going to do that because number one, it's too large. The expenses are going to be too big. I don't like houses with pools, unless apparently they're common in Arizona because we just bought a house in Arizona that has a pool. But typically, I don't do pools because I don't want to maintain them at all. I don't want to deal with the maintenance. I don't want to deal with the liability. And my people aren't there on vacation. So I'm not looking for those types of properties. I don't want anything larger than 3,000 square feet because I don't want to furnish it. So I look at it. I look at what market am I in? What is the average home price? What is the average type of property people are buying? In my area, it's 3 to 4 bedrooms, 2 to 3 bathrooms. First, 1 and 2 stories are great. I try not to do basements if I can help it because basements are not necessarily common here. And I don't want to deal with a basement leak. So I just think about what's the average property that somebody's going to stay in to live. And that's the type of property I target for a midterm rental.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I wish I would have known about this when I was a truck driver trainer in California and there was no hotels. So that really stunk.
Yeah, but you just defined an avatar for yourself. Think about that. You just defined a client avatar. They're everywhere. If we think about why would somebody need to stay in a place for more than 30 days? If you think about that really hard and just make a list and then just go after those people or those companies, etc.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Mr. Irving Cortez. Irving, you are with Tanishia Epps. What's your question?
Hey guys, thanks for all your wisdom in advance. So part of my question already got answered, which is awesome. Another piece of it was, so I actually was the benefactor of a midterm rental myself in the past when I had a pipe burst in my house. And I know when that happened, my homeowner's insurance, they had like a service that they used that was in charge of finding me a property that was suitable for me to stay in the area. How would you recommend, if you know, how could we get connected or market our midterm rentals to companies like that provide that sort of service to insurance companies?
The main company that the most insurance companies work with is called ALE Solutions.
Okay. Yep. That was the one that actually, now that you say that, it sounds very familiar. Yep.
Go to ALE Solutions and they have a section on the site where you can submit your property. And you just have to wait for them to call you.
Okay. Awesome.
Just wait for them to call you. And I just placed somebody today with the exact same issue you just mentioned. I just placed somebody today for 3 months.
Adriana Garcia, you are on with Tanishia Epps. What's your question?
Hi, good afternoon, guys. Can you hear me? Hi, nice to meet you, Tanisha. Hello, JJ, once again.
Hi.
I have a question of, after you have someone leaving, let's say for 3 months, they live in your property, how long does it stay vacant, or do you place someone right away in that property?
It depends. So this is the thing about midterm rentals is just like short term. And again, there's plenty of people on this call that do short term rentals. You cannot guarantee that you're going to get somebody to fill your place. That's the thing is like, so I get a lot of people call and they ask, oh my gosh, how do I get into midterm rentals? Because they're thinking that it's like long term. Once you get somebody in there, then they just stay, and it's just constantly back to back to back. There are gaps in your calendar. There are. It's just that when they stay with you, they're there for longer. But you still do have gaps. I just had a gap in one of my stays for a month. And now they're booked for 3 months. It happens. What I try to tell people, and I just had a consultation with someone today, I just tell them, once you get your property, plan for 3 months vacancy. I just tell them off the break, just plan for 3 months, have a contingency, have the money available for you to pay the rent if you're arbitraging, or you're renting somebody else's property. If you own a property, cover yourself for at least 3 months. Because if you don't have occupancy, then you're still okay to make sure that you cover your bills, because you still have to pay the utilities. You still have to pay the mortgage or the rent. You have to cover those expenses. So again, a lot of people are talking about the Airbnb platform and the algorithm change right now. I know a ton of hosts that are seeing a major dip in their occupancy because of all of those changes. And depending on where you live, it's a slow season, right?
Mhm.
So you just had, someone mention the pipe burst, but that doesn't happen all the time, right? If you're in an area where it freezes on a regular basis, it might be very busy. And then 3 months later, it's dead, which is why you have to think about who is it that you're going after. And really in this business, do you have a thick skin if you have a vacancy and you're not going to freak out about it? Because some people are still better suited to be long-term landlords, and that's okay.
So having you say this, does it really like make up what you're making overall in income with those 3 months, as considering those 3 months in vacancy as if you had a long-term tenant?
Usually, yeah. And I typically make more anyway, because the thing about midterm is, and even with short term, people are paying for convenience and flexibility.
Mhm.
That's really what they're paying for. So if you think about the tiers of long-term, midterm, short-term, each of those has a layer of consistency or flexibility. So if you have a long-term tenant, that long-term rent that you're paying or getting is less because there's less work for you to do. And the person that's staying there gets consistency. So midterm is the in-between. What they're paying for is the flexibility not to be locked into a long-term lease, right? Because we still use leases. I know not everybody does. I don't always do it if it's on Airbnb, but it really just depends on the situation and why they're coming to stay. So they're paying for flexibility not to be locked into a long-term lease, and also to have a place that's furnished and all utilities are included. And then when you look into short-term, they're really paying for the convenience of coming in and out. That's what they're paying for. So you may have some of those times where your 3-month stay is making up for the fact that you had a vacancy plus utilities. It really just depends on why the person's staying with you, where the money's coming from. And if you have a travel medical professional staying with you, just think about the fact that they're going to pay less than a lot of other people, because those are individuals and they're trying to keep their money in their pocket as much as they can. And I get it, because I used to be one of those people. I got very crafty on how to not spend my per diem and all the other things. I used money I collected for several years to buy a house.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, it's because I understand. I've been so confused because we live in Los Angeles, and obviously like short-term rental and multi, it's not allowed. We're planning on adding 2 ADUs in our property, but we never, we had no clue that short-term rental was not allowed in, in multi. So I spoke with a host that he's in charge of almost 50 units here. And he's the one that kind of opened my eyes. I'm like, oh man, we had, no clue. But then we spoke about the short term, the midterm, and we went through all these things that you're saying. And it's is it really worth it? Now you have to consider the furnishing. How much are you going to be paying for the furnishes, and now if something breaks when the tenant is there, obviously they pay part, but you still have to be doing repairs. You still have to be replacing the furniture. You still have to be doing a deep cleaning. And I'm I don't really know if all these expenses really make up if I want to go the route of midterm, or just might as well put someone long-term. So that's my question.
It's so good that you're saying that, though, because this is the piece that people miss is, and when you look at short term, people go in, there's this doesn't work for a long-term rental. I get this all the time. This only works for a midterm rental. It doesn't work for a short-term. It only works for midterm. And I'm like, but if it doesn't work for a long-term, what's the alternative if you don't get a booking and it just doesn't work? Everything has to be a long-term rental. It has to work as a long-term rental. And this is why I tell people, build in your reserves. Because if you say, I'm going to test this out for 6 months and see how it works, and it doesn't work out for you, guess what? You can always pivot back to a long-term rental because you ran your numbers correctly and you had your contingency plan. And I guarantee anyone that's a good short-term rental operator, and I know at least several of them in this call, always run everything as a long-term rental first. Because if you don't, you could really put yourself in a bad position. And I think we've all been there before without with vacancies, et cetera. And you're kind of freaking out like, oh my gosh, what do I do? But if you have that backup plan, at least you know if this doesn't work out the way I want it to, I can always go back to a long-term rental.
Got it. Okay.
Even my arbitrages, I could turn them into long-term rentals on my sublease and still be fine.
Okay. Yeah. Gotta make those numbers before.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanisha.
Yeah. Thank you for the question.
To touch on her question and where that went, I believe I've heard Pace say, or a number of people, that when you're looking at a short-term rental or a midterm rental, that if it doesn't work as a long-term rental, then that makes it more challenging. As long as it works as a long-term rental, it allows you more flexibility. Is that correct?
It allows you more flexibility because you can always pivot if it doesn't work out the way you want. And if the regulations change in your area, which is happening to a lot of people, what do? Right? If you only looked at it as a short-term rental and it did not cash flow as a long-term rental, and your city comes down today and says, nope, can't do it, no permits, or you have to live in the house in order to do it or whatever, what are you going to do? You're going to freak out. Now, you're either going to continue to operate and hope you don't get caught, or you have to pivot back to a long-term rental. And if you can't do that, now you're paying somebody to live in the house if you end up renting it on a long-term. So if it doesn't work for a long-term rental, I don't even touch them. As adjusting, I don't even touch them because I don't have to. And I'm really covering myself.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at. If it doesn't work as a long-term rental, don't even think about it for a midterm or short-term. Mr. Adam Catlidge, you are on with Tanishia Epps. What's your question, Adam?
Hey, Tanisha, how's it going?
Hi, Adam.
So as far as first of all, thanks for doing this, and thanks, JJ, for setting this up. As far as furnishings go, when you first set up your initial ones, and you've done this for a period of time, have you seen a trend of items that are typically requested that you didn't originally think might be something I might need in a midterm? Because I do short-term rentals, so I think of entertainment as an experience. Midterm's a little bit different. They're coming there to live there. So I would see it as two different things, and I know what I've changed my properties to have in there because of what people have asked for. Have you seen that in a midterm that you overlooked when you first initially started this?
So far, I have not had anybody ask for anything that I do not have in the unit. And here's why. I was a corporate traveler, so I knew the things that I was looking for when I was away from home. And do you know what I did when I started? I literally started in my kitchen, and I just stood there. And I thought about what I cooked for dinner. And then I went through all of my drawers, and then I went through all of my cabinets. And I said, what are the things that I use on a regular basis that I would want to have if I was not at my house, but I still need to use all these things? That's how I figured out what my list was. Literally was sitting there like, what did I use when I was away to cook? I opened up all of my cabinets. I looked at pots and pans. I have air fryers in all my places because I love air fryers. Not everybody does that, but that's one that people love because it cooks everything and you don't have to go and make a meal every single time you want to cook something. So I haven't had anybody actually ask me for anything that's not there. But part of the reason is because I literally walked through my entire house making a list of what do I use today? What do I use this day? What do I use? What type of towels do I like? I had an experience, and I've only stayed at one short-term rental, well, maybe two. I stayed at one, and the sad part was I pay really close attention to the towels because I used to live in hotels. I took the towel and I wiped it, and I like lotion, and it was like snowing in the bathroom, and all the stuff was stuck to my body because the towels were terrible. I never want anybody to come to me and be like, Tanishia, your towels suck. No. So I have a certain place that I buy my towels because that's the experience I want to provide to people. So I just think about, what experience do I want to give them? I don't do luxury midterm rentals though. Now I do know some people that do, and they will go all out. They will still make it that vacation experience. I just don't do that because I don't do vacation rentals. But if you have a vacation rental that you do a hybrid of a midterm and a short term, that's great because you have a purpose for doing it. But I mean, if I think about, I want to keep things simple. It's like I buy the same type of TV every single time. I buy a TCL Roku TV with guest mode. And the reason I love that is because it's the same remote every time. I do not have to figure out how to use a remote. And I don't pay for people's Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus. I don't do any of that. I switch it over to guest mode, which allows them to set their check-in and check-out, or they set their checkout date. And the TV will automatically log them out on their checkout date. So I don't even have to go back and remember to tell somebody, oh, go check and see if they logged out of all their stuff. No. And the better part about it is the Roku or the TCL, the Roku site, has a whole little pamphlet on how the TV works. So I just print that out and I leave it in my unit. So that's one less piece of, information I have to create because they already did it for me. But I love those, and they're not expensive. So I have a whole list of places that sell that TV, and I just go figure out which one is on sale. And then that's it.
Appreciate it. And then I've got one other question for you, to go back to when you were talking about, looking at a market of what you're, when you're moving into one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're looking at the industries that are there, but are there, what else are you looking at just from, a quick overview of an area? Say, hey, I want to move into San Antonio, right? What are you looking for before you start getting into the nit and gritty of, okay, calling around, seeing if there's actually a need for this type of this type of housing in this area? Are you using, Furnish Finder, or using Airbnb, or using, all these sites that are provided, or you just,
I start with Google. I keep it simple. I start with Google, and I literally put in the city information about, and let's say I pick San Antonio, and it's going to tell me a ton of stuff like San Antonio is a military town. There's a lot of military people that come in and out. I love San Antonio. That's one of the markets we'll be moving into probably later this year. I think I told you that. So I look at what's happening in the area. So if Google tells me that all this cool stuff is happening, maybe that's somewhere I want to look at. Now, if I go look at Watertown, South Dakota, and I only picked that because I've been there like 3 or 4 times, and probably nobody's ever heard of Watertown, South Dakota, because I used to travel weird places. There's nothing there.
We hear
There's
from
not a lot of population. There's not a whole lot there. It's beautiful though. Just like when I went to Minot, North Dakota, and Bismarck, they're beautiful places, but there's not a whole lot going on there except a bunch of cows. I love cows. They're beautiful, but that's not going to help me in my business.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Mr. Lamont Bird. Lamont, you're on with Tanishia Epps. What's your question?
First, I want to say thank you, JJ, for putting this together. And I'm starstruck. I finally get to meet the famous Tanishia.
Oh, gosh.
I love the vault. And Tanishia, Tanishia posted one of my favorite paid Zooms one time by asking. She's such a go-giver. I will double down, triple down, quadruple down, octagon on her go-giverness. So if you ever need anything, Tanishia is your go-to. Thank you for being on this Zoom, Tanishia. You're giving us so much value.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity. And I want to piggyback on what you just said, because I think sometimes when people hear a thank you from someone, I just want to say thank you to JJ, first off, because JJ actually taught me how to get more visible in Facebook too, by the way. I'm totally social media like illiterate. Okay. It's real bad. JJ, I came to that piece that we did before this about Facebook 101. I came to that JJ taught me how to get more visible in groups. So I'm so grateful for that. And the second thing is I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you because it helps me build my skills, build my knowledge, and to share what I know. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So my question is, any advice on pitching JV into a private money lender who's only knows about short term, has no clue about midterm, is kind of like nervous? Have you run into that? And what ways have you been pitching it?
It's probably a little easier for me just because I understand the industry because I've been in it. So let me just give that caveat. But here's the thing. If you understand who you're serving, because again, for me, everything is about service. If you understand who it is that you're serving and why you actually care about this business, that's the first thing. So I don't pitch money first. I pitch value and I pitch service and what my company's about. So that's the first thing. And then I talk about, hey, here's how I got into this industry. Let me tell you a little bit about it and who people are, because again, most people have heard of vacation rentals. And I flat out just tell people, I don't do vacations. If I want a vacation, I'm going to Disney. Like, I'm very serious about that, okay? So I don't do vacation rentals, but it's just because I don't want to. And I'm okay with that. So if you're going to someone and you're telling them you're getting into midterm rentals, let them know what that means. A midterm rental is typically a 30 or more day stay. And a lot of people are getting out of short term because of regulation changes, arguments with hotels, all this legislation, et cetera. So if you can go into those things about why you would be doing midterm over short term and talk about the value and who you're serving, that will help you off the break. Because what you're doing right now is educating people on something that they don't understand. Just like people did not know about short-term rentals, right, until it blew up. There's still people that don't know what sub 2 is. Clearly, we've all had that conversation at least once in the last week. I guarantee it. So just understand the value that you're providing and be confident about who you're serving. So like for me, even when I started doing arbitrage, when I began, my pitch was horrible. Okay. It was horrible because I was, number one, I was super nervous and I didn't really understand who I was serving because I hadn't defined my niche yet. That was my problem. And I was still shiny object syndrome. Once I got really defined and I literally wrote out my goals and how does this business relate to me? So then I can relate it to somebody else. The pitch is easy. I mean, I can spout it off. I don't even have to think about it anymore because I believe in it so much.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I'm not surprised by your answer. That was very detailed, concise, perfect, and you've given me clarity. Thank you, Tanishia.
What's the best way for you, do you think, for people to define their niche?
I think the most important thing to start is to figure out what you care about. Like, what is it that you actually care about personally? For me, the biggest thing in my career was I cared about people. That was the number one thing. I cared about people. And then I said, well, what about those people? Who are the people that I care about that I can help in real estate? Then I started going back to what experiences do I have that I can bring into real estate? Because again, for me, wholesale cash wasn't a thing that I just resonated with. It just wasn't. But when I started to define what do I want in my personal life? What kind of time do I want to have available? What life do I want to live? Then I reverse engineer that into my business of, okay, if I want to be able, again, I'm going to just keep throwing this whole Disney thing out because I'm a fanatic. If I want to be able to go to Disney at least once a quarter whenever I want, in order for me to do that, I have to find something that doesn't require a ton of my time. These don't require a ton of my time. I spent a lot of time today because I placed 2 people today. That took up some time. But after that, I'll do my check-in with them and I probably won't hear from them. I don't know. I check in with them once a month just to see if they're okay. I just want to make sure they're alive and still there. But other than that, unless they need something, I don't hear from them. And I want them to have that autonomy and freedom. So I think the biggest thing about defining your niche is figuring out what you relate to. Because if you're doing something you don't relate to, it's going to be very hard for you to keep doing it, which is why certain things in real estate, that is the reason why I was able to have shiny object syndrome, is because I didn't find anything that resonated with me personally. So now as a part of our business, on top of being able to collect, whatever money we get as profit, we're starting to donate money from our profits to local charities. So see, that is something for me that resonates. So that's how I defined my niche, was really just going through a bunch of things that I just didn't want to do or didn't resonate with me. And I kept coming back to the same thing.
Awesome. As far as I think we all have that same purpose, goals to help people and to find how we want to do that is key. People want to reach you. You've got it back there on your screen. What's the best way for people to connect with you if they have a question? Are you coaching? Are you helping people learn about midterm rental? It looks like you have a Facebook group for midterm rental. You want to tell us about that?
Somebody else is managing it because I do what I'm good at. Okay. Like seriously, I do the things I'm good at. So I have another sub 2 student who loves this stuff and paces all over me about delegation. So I'll have to talk to him about making it available because apparently he still can't find it. So I'll talk to him and he can fix it because I don't know how to do it and I'm not going to go learn because I define my niche and I'm not going to go do stuff that I shouldn't be doing anymore.
Well, maybe I can help you with that group a little bit, having one of my own. But you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook. If people have a question or want to contact you, is there a preferred social media platform you prefer?
Either one of those is okay. What I will caveat with is I get a lot of messages and I still have a job. So please don't be mad at me if I don't get back to you right away. Okay, please don't be mad at me. And then you asked me about coaching. So I've just recently started doing consultations for people just to talk about midterm rentals and defining kind of their avatars and who they can go after. So I'll have a schedule probably starting next week after the mastermind that I'll be able to release on my social media where people can connect with me.
Are you going to be at the mastermind?
As long as I can get to the airport, which means I have to get some sleep tonight because my flight is at 7 a.m. and it's 2 hours away. So that is the intent for now.
Well, I'm going to be there. My first mastermind. Looking forward to meeting you.
Awesome.
Get a picture together.
Yes.
Before we cut away, I have one last question for you. My group's a networking group about building relationships, and I think you probably have a perspective on this. Whether it's the new investor or the seasoned investor who's now coming to the social media platform, whether it be Sub2 or other education groups, what is the importance of networking to build one's business via social media, and maybe the benefit of joining a group like the one that I have? What's the benefit of networking and joining a networking group?
If you're not networking, you're not growing. And the one thing I will say is, and Pace continues to say it is, nobody ever made $1 by themselves. Nobody. And what we tend to do when we first start is we get so shelled to do things on our own, either because we're afraid to ask for help, we're afraid to admit that we don't know something, or we don't want to share money because that, let's just be, real, that happens to everybody. I've been there too. And the biggest thing that I learned being in these types of groups, especially like in yours and Sub2, is the value is in the community, and you can only build community by networking with people. Mm-hmm. And if you don't allow people to get to know you, then they won't want to work with you. Like there's a lot of people that know my name strictly because someone else told them, or because I dropped a link and gave them some type of information, because I'm trying to be helpful, but that's another way for me to connect with people. So like your type of networking group, I love those because again, for me, somebody that's a little bit trying to hide in the shadows, that's still a place where I can be visible and still be comfortable. So the networking piece is huge. You can't do anything on your own. You just can't. And you shouldn't try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things I say is people help people they like. They mm-hmm. cannot like you in the context of social media if they don't know you.
That's true.
And they cannot know you if you're not visible. So it's very important to be visible. I say in relation to networking, that networking leads to visibility and visibility leads to opportunity. So if you guys are watching, join my networking group. Again, you can find Tanishia on Facebook. My website's jjzizin.com. Look for me on Facebook. Look for Tanishia on Facebook. We're both out there. Tanishia Epps is wonderful. As you get into up to, if you're not there yet, you're watching us on YouTube. She's the gal. She's the lady. She runs the vault of knowledge. If you guys are watching the video right now on YouTube, please like the video. Please put something in the comments. Let us know that you support what we're doing so we can keep going. And look for more videos coming up on my YouTube channel, The Flip Side Up with JJ. Please join the networking group and be visible, build your relationships. If you guys are on the call, don't go away. We're going to go to breakout rooms. You can be in a breakout room with Tanishia Epps yourself. Okay. On behalf of Tanisha and myself, thanks for joining us, guys. And we'll see you on another episode soon.